Hello. Tonight, we walk into a world where gods still attend weddings, where mountains listen, and where a single moment can bend the future of nations. Imagine a warm evening on Mount Pelion. The air smells of pine and sea salt. Torches flicker against stone, and music drifts upward into the darkening sky. This is a wedding not of mortals alone, but of Peleus, a human hero, and Thetis, a sea goddess whose feet once walked the ocean floor. Before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories like this. And if you wish, share your location and local time in the comments. These stories have traveled far, and it's always comforting to know where they are being heard. Now, dim the lights, let the day loosen its grip, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The wedding of Peleus and Thetis was meant to be a rare moment of harmony. The gods arrived in splendor. Zeus himself presided, thunder set aside. Hera wore the calm mask of a queen at peace. Athena came armored, as always, but silent. Apollo played his lyre. Even the wild centaurs paused their wandering to watch. This marriage mattered, not for love alone, but because of a prophecy. It had been foretold that Thetis would bear a son greater than his father. To avoid being overthrown by his own child, Zeus arranged for her to marry a mortal instead. Yet one figure was missing. Eris, the goddess of strife, had not been invited. In the logic of myth, exclusion is never neutral. Eris did not shout. She did not curse the guests. She waited. And when the feast was at its height, when laughter echoed and cups were full, she stepped forward and let a small object roll across the floor. A golden apple. It gleamed in the firelight, polished and perfect. Carved into its surface were simple words, "For the fairest." Then Eris vanished. The apple lay between the goddesses like a quiet challenge. No one needed to ask what it meant. Three stepped forward at once. Hera, queen of the gods, Athena, goddess of wisdom and war, and Aphrodite, goddess of love and desire. Each believed the apple belonged to her. Each was certain the judgment would confirm what she already knew. Zeus, watching the tension tighten, refused to choose. Even the king of gods understood that favoring one would mean the hatred of the other two. So he did what power often does. When it hesitates, he passed the decision downward. The judge, Zeus declared, would be Paris. Paris was not a king, at least not yet. He was a shepherd living on the slopes of Mount Ida, raised far from palaces and politics. Unknown to him, he was a Trojan prince, abandoned at birth after a prophecy warned he would one day bring ruin to his city. Fate, however, has a habit of circling back. The goddesses appeared before Paris not as distant divinities but as overwhelming presences. The air itself seemed to shift. Each made her offer. Hera promised power. She would make Paris ruler over Asia, lord of countless cities, a king whose name would command obedience. Athena promised wisdom and victory. She would grant him unmatched skill in battle and a mind sharper than any rival's glory earned through strength and intelligence. Aphrodite promised love, not abstract affection, but a specific gift, the love of the most beautiful woman in the world. Her name was Helen. Helen was already married, queen of Sparta, wife of Menelaus. Her beauty was not simply physical. It was said to unsettle reason itself. Kingdoms measured themselves by their distance from her fame. Aphrodite's promise carried a hidden cost, though she did not name it. Paris hesitated. You can almost hear the wind move through the grass, the distant bells of sheep, the weight of silence pressing in. He was young. He was human. And in that moment, power and wisdom mattered less than desire. He chose Aphrodite. The apple passed into her hand. Hera and Athena turned away, their faces calm, their resentment absolute. Nothing else was said, but nothing else needed to be. The decision had been made, and the consequences were already in motion. From that hillside, the path stretched outward toward Sparta, toward Troy, toward ships and spears, and years of waiting beneath stone walls. Paris returned to his flock. but the quiet life had already begun to loosen its hold on him. Far away, Helen stood unaware beneath a different sky. Kings ruled, children slept, and cities carried on with their ordinary nights. Yet somewhere between the gods and the earth, a balance had shifted, and as the apple's gleam faded into memory, the long road toward war began not with armies, but with a promise, waiting to be claimed. And it is claimed not with force at first, but with footsteps on a distant shore, as a single ship cuts through the calm waters of the Aegean and turns toward Sparta. Paris arrives as a guest. In the ancient world, this matters deeply. Hospitality is sacred, guarded by Zeus himself, and a guest who crosses your threshold is protected by custom older than memory. Menelaus, king of Sparta, welcomes the Trojan prince with courtesy. Feasts are held. Gifts are exchanged. Stories are told in the long evenings as oil lamps glow and the sound of the sea reaches even the palace walls. Helen watches him from across the hall. Some later tellings will call what follows a seduction. Others will call it an abduction. The old sources do not fully agree, and perhaps that uncertainty is part of the story's weight. What is clear is that Aphrodite keeps her promise. Desire moves quietly, loosening restraint, blurring duty. Helen, whose beauty has already shaped politics and pride across Greece, feels herself drawn into a current she did not choose to create. When Menelaus leaves Sparta briefly, called away to Crete for funeral rites, the palace is left unguarded in its most human sense. Paris does not waste the moment. Treasure is gathered. Helen leaves her home, her daughter, her place as queen. By night or by persuasion, willingly or not, she boards the Trojan ship. When the sails fill with wind, something more than a marriage bond is broken. An ancient trust shatters with it. Menelaus returns to an empty palace. The halls are too quiet. The servants cannot meet his eyes. Helen's chambers stand open, her jewelry gone, her place at the hearth cold. Anger follows shock, but beneath both lies something heavier. Humiliation. A king has been wronged in his own house. A guest has violated sacred law. Menelaus does not act alone. He goes to his brother Agamemnon, king of Mycenae, whose power stretches farther than any other Greek ruler. Agamemnon understands at once that this is more than a personal grievance. Helen was once the most desired bride in Greece. Before her marriage, princes and kings came from every corner, each hoping to win her hand. To prevent bloodshed among themselves, Helen's father, Tyndareus, had demanded an oath. Every suitor swore to defend the chosen husband against any future wrong. At the time, it seemed like a formality, a clever solution to an awkward problem. Now it becomes a summons. Messengers are sent across the Greek world. The oath is called in. Some kings answer eagerly, seeing a chance for glory or plunder. Others hesitate, sensing the scale of what is being asked. But oaths bind even the reluctant. Slowly, ships begin to gather. From Ithaca comes Odysseus, clever and wary. He has married Penelope and would rather stay among his olive trees than chase war across the sea. According to legend, he pretends madness, ploughing his fields with salt, until the ruse is exposed by placing his infant son before the blade. Odysseus yields, knowing the oath will not release him. From Pylos comes Nestor, old even by heroic standards, his voice heavy with memory. He has seen wars rise and fall before these younger men were born. From Salamis comes Ajax, massive and silent, a wall of a man. From Phthia comes Achilles. Achilles is young, the son of Peleus and Thetis, the sea goddess whose wedding began this chain of events. He is already known as the greatest warrior of his generation, swift and deadly, carrying a fate foretold. He may live a long, quiet life in obscurity, or a short life crowned with eternal fame. The path toward Troy makes the choice for him. The gathering point is Aulis, a harbour where the Greek fleet assembles in numbers rarely seen before or since. Hundreds of ships line the shore. Spears catch the sun. Armour is polished. Yet the sea remains stubbornly still. Day after day, the sails hang slack. The wind refuses to rise. The army waits. Frustration grows, supplies thin, At last, the seer Calchas speaks. The goddess Artemis, he says, is angered. Agamemnon has offended her, though the exact cause shifts with each telling. To appease her, a sacrifice is required. Not an animal. Iphigenia, Agamemnon's daughter, is summoned under false pretenses, told she is to marry Achilles. When the truth emerges, the camp falls silent. This is no battle, no distant risk. This is a knife raised against a child to move an army forward. Some versions say Artemis replaces the girl with a deer at the last moment, carrying Iphigenia away. Others say the sacrifice is completed and the cost is paid in full. The old poets leave the wound open. What matters is that afterward, the wind rises. The fleet sails. Across the sea, Troy stands watching. The city is old, wealthy, and strong, built on high ground near the narrow passage of the Hellespont. King Priam rules with age-softened authority. His sons are many, but one stands apart. Hector, defender of Troy, husband, father, warrior, shaped by duty rather than hunger for fame. Paris returns home with Helen, welcomed not with universal joy, but with uneasy acceptance. Priam does not drive her away. Hospitality binds him as well. What has been taken cannot easily be returned without shame. The walls remain closed. The city waits. The Greeks land on Trojan soil after initial skirmishes and confusion. Protesilaus, the first to leap ashore, is the first to die, fulfilling an old prophecy that the first Greek to touch Trojan land would fall. From the beginning, fate marks the edges of this war. Years begin to pass. The city does not fall quickly, as some expected. Troy's walls hold. Hector leads its defense with steady resolve. The Greeks raid the surrounding countryside, capturing supplies and smaller towns allied to Troy. The war becomes a cycle of violence and waiting, seasons turning, while neither side can deliver a final blow. Within the Greek camp, tensions grow. Agamemnon commands, but his authority is resented. Achilles fights brilliantly, yet his pride is easily wounded. Odysseus observes, calculating. Nestor advises, often ignored. The army is united by oath, not by harmony. The gods, too, take sides. Zeus claims neutrality, though his hand still tilts the balance when asked. Hera and Athena, insulted by Paris's judgment, favor the Greeks openly. Aphrodite protects Paris and Helen. Apollo stands with Troy, his arrows silent but deadly. The battlefield becomes crowded not only with men, but with unseen wills pressing from above. At night, fires burn along the shore. You can almost hear the surf rolling in, the murmur of voices, the clink of armor set aside. Warriors think of home, of wives and children growing older without them. Trojans look down from their walls, watching the same flames, knowing that behind each one stands a man sworn to their destruction. This war, born from a promise and an apple, has now become a way of life. And as the years grind on, as patience wears thin and pride hardens into resentment, one conflict within the Greek camp begins to eclipse all others, a quiet, simmering clash between king and champion, waiting for the moment it will finally break. Even as the war itself settles into something slower and heavier, a long endurance beneath walls that refuse to fall. The first years at Troy pass without resolution. The city stands firm, its stone defenses rising above the plain like a permanent horizon. From the Greek camp below, the walls seem close enough to touch, yet always out of reach. Assaults are tested, ladders raised, formations pressed forward, but Troy does not yield. Its gates remain closed, its towers remain manned. Each failure teaches the Greeks the same lesson. This will not be a quick war. So the fighting changes. Instead of constant siege, the conflict spreads outward. Greek forces raid nearby towns allied to Troy, stripping the land for food, cattle, and captives. These raids sustain the army and weaken Trojan support, but they also stretch the war into the lives of people far from the city's walls. Villages burn briefly, then vanish from memory. Survivors are taken. The war grows roots. Back at Troy, King Priam watches from his palace, an old man carrying the weight of many sons. He has ruled long enough to know when a problem cannot be solved by pride alone. Yet every option is narrow. To return Helen would mean public humiliation and an admission of guilt that might fracture the city from within. To keep her is to invite endless war. Priam chooses endurance. Hector becomes the visible face of that endurance. He is not the strongest warrior in the world, nor the most cunning, but he is constant. Each day he arms himself, kisses his wife Andromache goodbye, lifts his infant son Astyanax once more, and walks to the gates. His sense of duty outweighs his desire for glory. He fights because the city stands behind him. Because retreat is not an option he allows himself to imagine. Paris fights too, though less consistently. He is skilled with the bow, handsome, quick, but hesitant when the lines close. Some Trojans defend him fiercely, others resent him quietly. After all, this war came to their walls because of his choice. Aphrodite watches over him, smoothing the edges of danger, pulling him from moments where courage falters. Among the Greeks, Achilles dominates the battlefield when he chooses to fight. His speed and precision turn skirmishes quickly. Trojans know his armor by sight and scatter when he advances. Yet even his brilliance does not change the larger truth. Troy still stands. Time stretches. Seasons mark the years more clearly than victories do. Summers bring dust and heat, armor chafing against skin. Winters bring cold rain, mud thick around the ships, sickness moving quietly through the camp. Fires burn constantly for warmth, for cooking, for signaling. The Greek camp becomes a temporary city, its tents arranged by rank and reputation. Leadership strains under the weight of repetition. Agamemnon commands, but his authority rests on status more than affection. He takes the largest share of spoils, as custom allows, yet each prize widens the distance between him and his warriors. Achilles, conscious of his own value, grows increasingly resentful. He knows that without him, the army falters. Agamemnon knows it too, and that knowledge sharpens every disagreement. Odysseus moves through the camp differently. He watches patterns, learns men's moods, speaks when needed, remains silent when it matters more. He understands that wars are not won by strength alone, though strength is necessary. Nestor, old and careful, tries to smooth disputes with stories of past heroes, reminders that pride once burned others down. The gods do not remain distant. Hera and Athena favor the Greeks openly, guiding spears, stiffening resolve. Aphrodite shields Paris and Helen, keeping desire alive even as the world around it hardens. Apollo, god of plague and prophecy, stands with Troy, his displeasure felt when Greek arrogance grows too loud. Zeus watches from above, weighing promises and fates, intervening only when balance must be restored. There are moments when the war seems almost orderly. Truces are called to collect the dead. Heralds cross the field unharmed, their voices carrying formal words both sides understand. Burial rites are respected, if only briefly. Then the fighting resumes, as if nothing has been learned. Inside Troy, life continues in uneasy rhythm. Markets open, children grow older, women gather at the wells. Helen walks the streets under watchful eyes, some curious, some hostile. She weaves scenes of the war into her cloth, watching men die at least twice, once in thread, once beyond the walls. Whether she regrets leaving Sparta is a question the poets never fully answer. Aeneas emerges during these years as a steady presence. He is not as celebrated as Hector, but he is deeply respected. He fights with devotion, guided by a sense of duty to gods and family that runs deeper than ambition. There is a quiet sense around him, even now, that his story will not end at Troy. For the Greeks, boredom becomes as dangerous as the enemy. Long waits dull discipline. Arguments flare over supplies, over honor, over perceived slights. Warriors who came seeking glory find themselves trapped in repetition. Songs change, jokes grow darker, hope narrows. It is during one such raid that Achilles takes Briseis, a woman captured from a nearby city. She becomes part of his household, a symbol of status rather than affection. To Achilles, she represents recognition, proof that his excellence is acknowledged. Agamemnon takes note. When Agamemnon is later forced to give up his own captive Chryseis to appease Apollo and end a plague sent through the camp, the loss cuts deeply. A king who appears weak risks losing authority. Looking for balance, he turns his gaze toward Achilles. The seeds of conflict are planted quietly. Beyond the walls, Hector continues his routine. He meets Ajax in single combat during a temporary truce, neither able to defeat the other before night falls. They exchange gifts, a moment of respect between enemies who understand each other too well. It is one of the few reminders that beneath armor, they share the same fears. As the 9th year of war closes, nothing has truly changed. Troy still stands. Greek ships still line the shore. The dead are many, the living exhausted. The oath that brought these kings together still binds them, but its meaning feels heavier now, less noble. You can almost hear the wind moving across the plain at dusk, carrying dust and distant voices. Fires flicker on both sides. Somewhere in the Greek camp, Achilles sits apart, pride hardening into something sharper. Somewhere in Troy, Hector looks at the walls and wonders how long they can hold. The war has become a waiting, but waiting itself is a pressure. And under that pressure, the smallest spark a seized prize, a wounded honor is enough to turn endurance into fury and patience into wrath. And it is here, at last, that the long-held tension inside the Greek camp finally breaks its surface. The spark is small, almost administrative in its beginnings. Apollo, angered by Agamemnon's refusal to return a captive girl, sends a plague through the Greek army. Men fall ill. Fires meant for cooking become funeral pyres. The camp grows quiet in a way that has nothing to do with rest. At last, Achilles calls an assembly. He does not accuse lightly, but he does accuse clearly. The plague, he says, is the cost of Agamemnon's arrogance. The seer confirms it. Chryseis must be returned to her father, and Apollo must be appeased. Agamemnon agrees, but agreement does not come without a counterweight. A king, he insists, cannot be left without honor. If he must surrender his prize, he will take another in its place. His eyes turn to Achilles. Briseis is taken. There is no violence in the moment itself, no drawn swords, no spilled blood, but something far more fragile is broken. For Achilles, Briseis is not merely a captive. She is a visible measure of respect, proof that his unmatched skill has been recognized. To have her seized publicly is to be reduced, to be told that even the greatest warrior stands beneath the king's will. Achilles does not strike Agamemnon, though the thought burns through him. Instead, he withdraws. He leaves the assembly, returns to his tent, and removes himself from the war entirely. He swears an oath that he will fight no more for the Greeks. The army feels the loss immediately. Without Achilles, their sharpest edge is gone. Still, Agamemnon holds his ground. Authority, once challenged, rarely yields quickly. That night, Achilles walks alone to the shore. The sea is dark and restless. He calls out not to men, but to his mother. Thetis rises from the water, a presence both gentle and terrible. She listens as her son speaks, his voice tight with wounded pride. He asks her to do what no mortal can. He asks her to go to Zeus and beg him to favor the Trojans, not forever, but long enough that the Greeks will feel his absence, long enough that Agamemnon will understand what he has taken. Thetis knows the cost. She knows her son's fate is already balanced on a narrow edge. Still, she agrees. Love, even divine love, does not always choose wisely. Zeus listens. Though he has claimed neutrality, he cannot ignore Thetis. He nods, and with that small motion, the balance of the war begins to tilt. The change is not immediate, but it is steady. Trojan confidence grows. Hector leads his forces with renewed force, pressing the Greeks harder each day. Without Achilles, the Greek line bends. Their raids falter. Their formations break more easily. The Trojans drive them back across the plain, closer and closer to the shore. For the first time in years, the Greek ships come into danger. Fires burn at the water's edge. The sound of battle carries over the waves. Panic begins to ripple through the camp. Nestor advises. Odysseus plans. Ajax holds the line with his great shield, but even he cannot be everywhere at once. Achilles watches it all from a distance. He does not fight, he does not speak. His pride holds him firm, even as the cost of his absence becomes clear. Patroclus watches too. Patroclus is Achilles' closest companion, bound to him not just by friendship, but by years shared since childhood. Where Achilles is sharp, Patroclus is steady. Where Achilles burns, Patroclus endures. He sees the ships threatened. He sees men he knows falling back in exhaustion and fear. At last, he goes to Achilles' tent. He does not argue about honor. He does not challenge the injustice. He speaks instead of necessity. "Let me fight," he says. "If you will not, then let me wear your armor. Let the Trojans think Achilles has returned. It will be enough to drive them back, enough to save the ships." Achilles hesitates. He agrees, but with conditions. Patroclus may drive the Trojans from the ships, but he must not pursue them to the walls of Troy. The warning is clear. Victory must remain limited. The armor is brought out, the unmistakable gear of Achilles, bright and terrible, carrying a reputation all its own. When Patroclus steps into it, the illusion is complete. The Trojans see him and falter. Word spreads quickly. Achilles has returned. Fear moves faster than orders. The Trojan advance breaks. Patroclus leads the charge, pushing them back from the shore, reclaiming ground lost over many days. For a moment, it works exactly as intended. But war is not built to pause neatly at the edge of success. Momentum carries Patroclus forward. The Trojans retreat not only to the plain, but toward the city itself. The sound of pursuit grows louder. The walls loom ahead. Apollo watches. As Patroclus approaches too closely, the god strikes him from behind, not with a blade, but with a sudden draining force. His strength falters. The armor no longer feels like a second skin. A Trojan spear strikes. Another follows. Hector arrives. He faces Patroclus, believing he faces Achilles, and in that belief, he commits fully. Their fight is brief and brutal. Patroclus falls. As life leaves him, he speaks a prophecy, warning Hector that Achilles' death will follow his own. Hector does not answer. He strips the armor from Patroclus's body, claiming it as a trophy. The sight of Achilles' armor on Trojan shoulders spreads confusion and dread through both armies. The Greeks recover Patroclus's body with difficulty, Ajax and Menelaus holding the line as Odysseus organizes a retreat. The corpse is brought back to Achilles' tent. When Achilles learns what has happened, the sound he makes is said to freeze those who hear it. It is not a cry of anger, but of grief so sudden and complete that it empties the space around him. He collapses, covering his face with ash. Thetis hears him again, this time not called, but compelled by loss. Patroclus is dead. The price of pride has been paid in full. Achilles' wrath turns inward, then outward, reshaping itself. He knows now that there is no return to the life he once imagined. The long path toward Troy has narrowed. He will fight again. Not for Agamemnon, not for the oath, but for Patroclus. Thetis grieves with him, but she also prepares. Achilles' old armor is gone, worn by the man who killed his friend. She goes once more to the gods, this time to Hephaestus, the smith, the maker of things meant to last longer than their bearers. Hephaestus forges new armor. The shield he creates is more than protection. It carries images of the world itself, cities at peace and war, fields being harvested, dances, trials, storms. Life in all its forms is beaten into bronze and gold. It is a reminder of what exists beyond battle, even as it equips a man heading back into it. When Thetis brings the armor to Achilles, dawn is breaking. The sea is calm. The camp is quiet with exhaustion and mourning. Achilles rises, renewed not with hope, but with purpose. He will return to the field. And when he does, the war that has waited for years will finally begin to move again, pulled forward by grief, fate, and a warrior who no longer holds anything back. And when Achilles steps onto the battlefield again, the war seems to recognize him at once. Word spreads faster than runners can carry it. Achilles has returned. not the proud champion of earlier years, but something harder, quieter, stripped of hesitation. His new armor catches the light like fire held in metal. The Trojans see him from the walls and feel a tightening in the chest that has nothing to do with tactics. Even the Greeks sense the change. This is not a return meant to restore balance. It is a descent. Achilles does not move cautiously. He does not test the line. He advances straight into the press of battle, and wherever he goes, the field opens before him. Trojans scatter. Some throw down their weapons. Others run for the safety of the walls. Names that once carried weight fall into silence. The fighting becomes uneven, then desperate. The river Scamander, which runs red with blood and choked with bodies, rises against him. In the old telling, the river is not just water, but a god, angered by the pollution of war. It swells, surges, and tries to drown Achilles in its current. The moment is strange and almost intimate, a man wrestling not with another man, but with the land itself. Achilles fights the river as he fights everything now, without restraint. He stabs, he strikes, he refuses to yield, even as the water closes around him. Only when other gods intervene does the river recede, steaming under divine fire. It is a reminder that Achilles' rage has reached beyond human limits, threatening the balance even the gods prefer to maintain. The Trojans retreat fully now, funneling toward their gates. Panic spreads along the walls. Priam watches his people run, his sons among them. He calls out to Hector, begging him to come inside, to let others hold the line. For the first time, his voice cracks openly. Hector does not answer. He has stopped outside the gates, standing alone on the plain where so many battles have already bled into the dust. He sees Achilles approaching, faster than any man should move, armor blazing. In this moment, Hector feels what every hero eventually must, the pull between duty and survival. He runs. 3 times they circle the city, Achilles relentless, Hector desperate, the walls and towers passing again and again like a silent audience. From above, Andromache watches, her hands gripping stone, her breath caught between hope and dread. At last, Athena intervenes. She appears to Hector in the form of his brother, urging him to stand and fight. Trusting the familiar shape, Hector turns. When he throws his spear and reaches for another, the illusion vanishes. He is alone. Achilles does not hesitate. The duel is brief. Hector's strength is real, his skill earned, but Achilles is beyond balance now. His spear finds its mark at Hector's throat, the one place left uncovered. Hector falls, life leaving him as the dust rises around them. As he dies, Hector asks only one thing: that his body be returned to Troy, that his family be allowed to bury him with honor. Achilles refuses. Grief has hardened into something crueler. He tells Hector that dogs and birds will feast on him. Then he does what even his allies cannot fully watch. He pierces Hector's ankles, ties the body to his chariot, and drags it around the city walls. Dust coats the dead man's face. The sound of his body striking the earth carries up to the towers. Inside Troy, mourning erupts. Priam tears his robes. Andromache collapses. Hecuba cries out curses that vanish into the air unanswered. Helen, standing apart, speaks last, remembering Hector as the only one who ever showed her kindness. Achilles returns to his camp, dragging the body behind him, and even there, his rage does not cool. Each day he repeats the act, circling Patroclus's tomb, as if motion itself might quiet what words cannot. The gods watch, disturbed. Apollo shields Hector's body from decay, preserving its dignity even as it is desecrated. At last, Zeus speaks. He orders Thetis to tell her son that enough has been done. He sends Hermes to guide Priam, old and unguarded, through the Greek camp under cover of night. The journey is quiet, the tents dim, the fires low. Priam walks among the enemies of his city, carrying ransom in his arms and fear in his chest. When he reaches Achilles' tent, he does not stand like a king. He kneels. He takes Achilles' hands, the hands that killed his son, and he kisses them. He asks Achilles to remember his own father. The words cut deeper than any spear. For the first time since Patroclus's death, Achilles weeps not alone. 2 enemies cry together, bound by grief that erases the lines of war for a moment. Achilles lifts Priam up. He agrees to return Hector's body. They share a meal in silence. Outside, the night holds. A truce is declared so Troy can bury its defender. For a brief time, the war pauses. Fires burn for mourning, not battle. Hector is laid to rest with honor, his ashes gathered. His name spoken one last time by those who loved him. The plain grows quiet again. But the silence is not peace. It is the stillness after something essential has been broken, before the next movement begins. And when it does, it carries the unsettling truth that even Hector's death has not ended the war. The funeral fires fade, the ashes are gathered. Troy stands again behind its walls, wounded but unbroken. For the Greeks, the victory tastes thin. Their greatest enemy has fallen, yet the city still breathes, its gates still closed, its towers still watching. The war, it seems, has learned how to survive the loss of its heroes. Time presses forward. Into this vacuum step new figures, drawn by loyalty, prophecy, or the simple gravity of a famous war. From the east comes Penthesilea, queen of the Amazons. She rides at the head of her warriors, armor gleaming, reputation preceding her like a banner. Some say she comes to aid Troy out of alliance. Others whisper she seeks redemption for an accidental killing, hoping death in battle will cleanse her. She meets Achilles on the field. Their fight is swift and fierce. Penthesilea is skilled, fearless, her movements precise. For a moment, the watching soldiers see something almost balanced, strength against strength, will against will. But Achilles, still driven by Patroclus' shadow, strikes true. Penthesilea falls. As he removes her helmet, Achilles sees her face. The moment is brief, but it lingers in the telling. He feels sorrow, perhaps even love, for the woman he has just killed. It is said that Thersites mocks him for this softness, and that Achilles kills Thersites in return. Whether or not this detail is true, the meaning remains. Achilles' violence no longer carries clarity. Each victory deepens the weight he bears. Not long after, another champion arrives. Memnon, king of the Ethiopians, son of Eos, the Dawn herself. He comes with armor forged by Hephaestus, radiant and strange, and an army hardened by distant wars. His presence restores some hope to Troy. Where Hector was duty-bound, Memnon is fated, his life already written in the patterns of the gods. He meets Achilles as well. Their duel mirrors the one with Hector, but without the personal history. Two men shaped by prophecy, both knowing that survival comes at a cost. Zeus watches from above and weighs their destinies. He allows Memnon to fall, but grants him immortality in death, lifting him into legend as Dawn weeps for her son each morning. Achilles stands victorious again, yet with each triumph the distance to his own end shortens. He knows it, Thetis knows it, the gods know it. Achilles' path has narrowed to a single direction, and there is no space left for turning aside. His rage has burned through enemies and allies alike, leaving only motion without rest. Paris watches from the walls. He is not Hector. He does not seek open combat. He has lived long enough beside this war to understand where his strength lies and where it does not. Apollo watches with him, guiding his hand, steadying his aim. The arrow flies. It is not dramatic in the way of duels or charges. It is one shaft among many, released into the chaos of battle. Guided by the god, it finds Achilles' heel, the one place left vulnerable when Thetis dipped him into the river Styx long ago, holding him by that small point of contact with the world. Achilles falls. The sound of it ripples outward. Greeks and Trojans alike pause, uncertain. When the dust settles, the truth is unmistakable. The greatest warrior of the age lies dying, his life leaving him not in a blaze of glory, but in the quiet inevitability of fate fulfilled. The Greeks fight desperately to recover his body. Ajax the Greater and Odysseus stand over him, holding back Trojan advances. They succeed, but victory feels hollow. Achilles is carried back to the ships, the armor he wore pierced and bloodied, his name already passing into memory. The mourning is immense. Patroclus' pyre is lit again, this time joined by Achilles. Thetis rises from the sea with her sisters, their lament said to still the waves themselves. Achilles' ashes are mixed with Patroclus's, just as he had wished. Even in death, he does not stand alone. Yet the war does not pause for grief. Troy still stands. Without Achilles, the Greek camp feels suddenly fragile. Leadership fractures further. Confidence drains away. The one figure who could tilt the balance by force is gone, and the oath that binds them now feels like a chain dragging them toward an end they cannot reach. The armor of Achilles becomes the next battleground. As custom demands, it must be awarded to the greatest surviving warrior. Two men stand above the rest. Ajax the Greater, towering, unbreakable, whose shield has saved countless lives, and Odysseus, smaller, quieter, whose plans have saved the army just as often. The contest is not settled by combat. Instead, words decide it. Odysseus speaks of strategy, of endurance, of victories that do not always leave bodies behind. He frames the war as something that must be thought through, not merely fought. Ajax speaks more plainly, trusting that his deeds speak for themselves. The leaders listen. The armor goes to Odysseus. Ajax does not protest in the moment. He says nothing. He leaves the assembly in silence, carrying his shame like a physical weight. That night, madness overtakes him. Athena clouds his mind, and in his delusion, he slaughters livestock, believing them to be his enemies. When clarity returns, so does horror. Ajax sees what he has done. He understands how far he has fallen in his own eyes. There is no place left for him in a world that measures worth in words rather than strength. He falls on his sword, choosing death over dishonor. Another hero is gone. The Greeks despair. Their greatest warrior is dead. Their strongest defender has taken his own life. The city they came to destroy still rises before them, patient and intact. The years have taken more than they have given. Even the gods seem restless, shifting their attention elsewhere. Strength has failed. Force has reached its limit. It is in this exhaustion, this hollowed space where hope thins, that another path begins to form, not in muscle or courage, but in the quiet architecture of a mind accustomed to waiting. Odysseus watches the walls of Troy and says nothing. But the war, sensing the change, grows very still, as if listening for the sound of something new being built just beyond sight. And in that stillness, the war quietly changes its shape. For years, Troy has resisted strength. Spears have shattered against its walls. Heroes have risen and fallen beneath its towers. Even Achilles, the storm made flesh, could not bring the city down by force alone. Now he is gone, and the plain before Troy lies heavy with exhaustion. Both sides feel it. The air itself seems worn thin. It is here, in this hollowed moment, that Odysseus speaks. He does not shout. He does not call an assembly, in anger or grief. He waits, watches, and then offers a different ending, one that does not rely on another champion, another charge, another season of blood. If Troy cannot be taken by assault, he says, then it must be taken by belief. The plan is unsettling in its simplicity. The Greeks will leave. They will dismantle parts of their camp, burn what they cannot carry, and sail away as if the oath has finally broken them. On the shore, they will leave behind a single object, a massive wooden horse, towering, carefully built, its hollow body large enough to conceal a chosen few. The horse, Odysseus explains, will be an offering to Athena, meant to atone for the Greeks' long offense against her sacred city of Troy. It will be built so large, he says, that the Trojans cannot bring it through their gates. The implication is deliberate. Left outside, it will stand as a monument to Greek failure. Some are uneasy. A trick of this scale feels like an admission that honor has already been spent, but desperation dulls resistance. There is no better plan. There is no other plan. The horse is built. Day after day, Trojan watchers see Greek carpenters working near the shore, felling trees, shaping beams, assembling something immense. The horse rises slowly, its flanks smooth, its head lifted as if frozen mid-stride. No explanation is offered, no challenge is made. Then, one morning, the plain is quiet. The Greek ships are gone. The beach where thousands once gathered is empty. Tents have vanished. Fires are cold. Only the wooden horse remains, casting a long shadow across the sand. The Trojans hesitate. Caution fights curiosity. Scouts move forward. They search the abandoned camp, finding nothing but ashes and debris. Slowly, the truth seems to settle in. The Greeks have left. The war, after 10 years, may finally be over. They gather around the horse. It stands silent, imposing, strangely beautiful in its stillness. Inscribed upon it are words declaring it an offering to Athena. Some laugh, some spit. Others wonder why an enemy would leave such a gift behind. Laocoon, priest of Poseidon, steps forward. He does not trust silence. He does not trust gifts. He throws his spear into the horse's flank. It strikes and quivers, and for a moment, those standing nearby swear they hear a hollow sound echo from within. The warning sharpens his voice. Beware of Greeks bearing gifts. His words hang in the air. Almost at once, something happens that seems to answer him. 2 great serpents rise from the sea and coil their way onto the shore. They move with terrifying purpose, crossing the sand and crushing Laocoon and his sons in their grip. Their bodies are broken, their cries are brief. The serpents vanish. The Trojans stand frozen. Fear replaces doubt. Many take this as a sign, not a warning, but a punishment. Laocoon, they decide, offended Athena by attacking her offering. Then they find Sinon. He is discovered near the horse, bound and trembling, a Greek left behind. When brought before Priam, he weeps and tells his story. He claims to be a deserter, sacrificed by his own people. The horse, he says, was built large on purpose, so the Trojans could never bring it into their city. If they did, Athena's favor would fall on Troy instead of Greece. The story is careful. It answers every fear with reassurance, every question with a reason that flatters Trojan pride. Sinon does not rush his words. He lets silence do some of the work for him. Cassandra speaks. She has always spoken. Gifted with prophecy and cursed never to be believed, she warns them again. The horse is a trap, she says. Destruction waits inside the walls if it is brought in. No one listens. Hope has already taken root. After 10 years of fear and loss, the idea that the war has ended is too gentle to resist. The gates are opened. Ropes are tied. The horse is dragged into the city, scraping stone, its weight leaving marks that will never fully fade. That night, Troy celebrates. Fires burn in joy, not alarm. Wine flows. Songs rise. The city sleeps deeply, its guards relaxed for the first time in a decade. High above, the horse stands silent in the square, unchanged, patient. Inside it, Greek warriors wait. Odysseus is among them. So are Menelaus, Diomedes, and other chosen leaders. They sit cramped in the dark, listening to the sounds of victory echo around them. Time stretches, muscles stiffen. Breath is held. Below them, the last torch sputters out. The last song fades into a murmur, then into the deep, even rhythm of sleep. The night is now complete, and in the darkness beneath the wooden flanks, there is only the soft, metallic sound of a hand slowly tightening around the hilt of a sword. And in the absolute dark, the trap opens. A hidden latch releases, a rope ladder unfurls. One by one, shadows drop from the belly of the horse onto the stone of Troy's sacred square. They move without speech, signals exchanged with glances. Odysseus heads for the gates. Menelaus turns toward the palace. Their blades are already drawn. The guards at the Scaean gate die quickly, silently. The great bolts, untouched for a decade from the inside, are drawn back. The doors swing open on hinges that groan from disuse. From the shore, a single torch flashes twice. The Greek fleet, hidden behind a nearby island, returns with oars muffled. The first ships beach quietly, then more. Then the army pours through the open gate, a river of iron and intent flooding into the sleeping city. Troy does not wake to battle. It wakes to unraveling. One moment, there is sleep. The next screams from a neighboring street, the crash of a door giving way, the sudden bloom of fire on a rooftop. Confusion is total. There are no lines, no formations, only chaos spreading faster than understanding. What follows is not war, it is the negation of order. The rules that once held, even in combat, are forgotten. Houses are not besieged, they are broken into. Altars offer no sanctuary. Priam, old and unarmed, is dragged from his bed to the altar of Zeus in his own courtyard. He clings to the stone, calling on the god of hospitality. Neoptolemus, son of Achilles, kills him there, the king's blood mingling with sacred wine. The act is so profound in its transgression that the air itself seems to shudder. Not far away, Greek soldiers find Astyanax, the infant son of Hector. They know the old logic. A son carries memory, and memory carries vengeance. He is taken to the walls. Andromache's screams are lost in the general roar. The child's fate is a brief, falling silence. Cassandra, who foresaw all of it, clings to the wooden statue of Athena in her temple. She believes the goddess will protect her supplicant. Agamemnon finds her there. He tears her from the statue, dragging her by the hair. The violation is both personal and divine. Cassandra does not struggle. She only names the death that waits for him in a bathtub in Mycenae, her words vanishing into the din. Menelaus finds Helen in the palace. For 10 years her face has been the fuel of his rage. His sword is raised, a final stroke to sever the past. Helen turns. Perhaps she speaks. Perhaps she simply looks at him. The stories disagree. What they agree on is the result. The strength leaves his arm. The sword point lowers. The war that began with her will not end with her death. She will return to Sparta, a ghost in her own life. Amid the smoke, another figure moves with purpose. Aeneas carries his father Anchises on his back. The old man holds the small household gods to his chest. Aeneas leads his young son Ascanius by the hand. He does not fight. He does not look back. He is guided by a different imperative, not to save the burning city, but to carry its seed away from the fire. They slip through a gate, left unguarded. 3 generations, moving from a past that is ending toward a future not yet born. By dawn, it is finished. The fires burn themselves out. The screams have subsided into the low weeping of the captured and the dying. The Greeks, splattered with ash and blood, gather their spoils and their prisoners on the shore. The weight of what they have done settles upon them. They have won, but the victory feels cold and too complete. They have not just defeated an enemy, they have erased a world. And as the first ships begin to load, the wind shifts. It comes from the north, sharp and sudden, smelling of storm. The sea, calm all night, begins to chop and churn. The Greeks look at the darkening horizon, then back at the smouldering ruins of Troy. The war has ended, but the reckoning has already set sail, and it is coming for them. The war ends not with celebration, but with departure. The plain before Troy empties once more. Ships pull away from the shore in scattered groups, their sails catching uncertain winds. What remains behind is ruin, broken walls, blackened stones, and ash settling into the earth where a city once stood. Troy has fallen, yet nothing feels complete. Victory has solved nothing. It has only scattered the consequences across the sea. For the Greeks, the end of the war is only the beginning of another ordeal. They do not return as one army. They leave as individuals, each carrying the weight of what they have done and what they have lost. Some will reach home quickly, greeted by familiar shores and uneasy silence. Others will wander for years, driven from island to island by storms, monsters, and divine resentment. The gods who once guided them now test them, reminding mortals that triumph does not grant immunity from judgment. These journeys will become stories of their own. Odysseus, whose mind helped bring Troy down, will spend 10 years trying to return to Ithaca. His road home will be shaped by temptation, endurance, and loss. He will outwit giants, resist immortality, descend into the realm of the dead, and finally return in disguise to reclaim what was taken from him. His story will not be about conquest, but about survival, identity, and the cost of cleverness. This long return will be remembered as the Odyssey. Elsewhere, Aeneas carries Troy forward rather than away from it. He does not seek to reclaim the past. He accepts that it is gone. His journey leads westward, guided by fate rather than choice, toward a land that will become Rome. Along the way, he will suffer storms, war, and love lost to duty. He is not rewarded with happiness, but with purpose. His story will become the Aeneid. Through these poems, Troy does not vanish. It changes form. The city that burned becomes a shared memory, retold across generations and cultures. The war itself is no longer just a historical event within myth, but a framework through which human behavior is examined and questioned. The Iliad showed what happens when honor hardens into wrath. Achilles' anger brought glory, but it also brought grief that could not be undone. Agamemnon's pride fractured unity. Hector's sense of duty cost him everything. Even the gods, powerful and eternal, were drawn into cycles of favoritism and revenge. The fall of Troy revealed what happens when cunning replaces strength. The wooden horse succeeded where armies failed, but its success carried moral weight. Deception won the war, yet it stained the victory. No one left Troy untouched by what they had done to win. These stories endure because they do not offer simple lessons. They show that bravery can coexist with cruelty, that intelligence can serve both survival and destruction, that fate may guide events, but never removes responsibility. The heroes of Troy are not flawless figures carved from stone. They are unstable, emotional, divided between duty and desire. Their greatness lies not in purity, but in scale. Their choices matter, and their failures echo. Over time, these myths become foundations. Greek poets, Roman historians, medieval scholars, Renaissance artists, and modern writers return again and again to Troy. Each era reshapes the story to ask its own questions. What is a just war? What does honor require? Can suffering be justified by destiny? Is cleverness superior to strength, or simply another form of violence? Troy becomes a mirror rather than a memory. The physical city disappears. Its stones are reused. Its name becomes legend. Archaeologists will one day search the earth for traces of walls and gates, trying to separate history from poetry. Yet the deeper Troy, the one shaped by language and imagination, never needs to be uncovered. It was never buried. Its ashes mix with the soil, but its echo carries forward. Every story of a long journey home, every warning about pride and anger, every reflection on war's cost draws something from Troy. The city that fell continues to speak, not through ruins, but through narrative. It reminds humanity that endings are rarely clean, that victory often carries regret, and that memory can outlast stone. The war ended in fire. The story did not end at all.